One of the things when you're working on restoration, you're looking at a landscape scale. And so you can come in and you can either be fascinated by the multitude of wading birds, waterfowl that are going to come back to a region. They've been flying over a region forever, looking down, saying, no, it's not good, no, it's not good. Hey, it's great, let's come down. So you see this magnificent response by waterfowl very, very quickly. But you can also just look over the side of the airboat sometimes and say, wow, I can see the bottom here in a foot of water where, say, 3 years ago it was very turbid. And wow, there's a flower growing that didn't grow back here a year ago, a plant that wasn't here, a fish species that was locally extirpated. It wasn't here for a while. Wow, we're seeing it come back.
We know that the project works really well because we can have environmental sustainability, we can provide recreation in a good, healthy ecosystem while population continues to increase, because that ultimately will be the economic growth engine for the communities around the lake.
I think one of the reasons we're seeing success in South Florida and the restoration projects that we're doing is that we are doing them through different agreements, local, federal, state, all collectively working together. And when you're all seeing eye to eye and working together, you can accomplish a tremendous amount.
One thing that I think is important that has come about in this state, and that's some of the public-private partnerships. There was a need to store water north of Lake Okeechobee, to retard it, to slow it down from going directly into the lake. And instead of the state going and buying a ranch like this and say, hey, we're going to store water, we're only 6 miles north of the lake, they just go and take proposals from landowners, and those landowners will say, hey, we'll store the water, we'll slow the water down from running off this. It costs a fraction of what buying the land. It keeps the land in agricultural production, producing beef cattle. Those public-private partnerships have been a win-win situation for all sides.
Things change over 50-some-odd years, and we have to be better stewards of the water that we currently have, and that means whether it's chemical runoff or whatever we have to do, we have to maintain a good quality lake, and that helps us from a small business standpoint or even from the tourist standpoint.
You don't have to be part of the problem to be part of the solution. And that's what I've seen cattle ranches in this area do.
We really are working for the next generation and trying to put things in motion that are going to make things better, or at least stabilize some of the problems that we have right now. It's going to take a long time. We've spent 100 years getting to where we are now. We're going to have to spend a lot of years getting to a better spot in the future.
We have 3 of the world's largest restoration projects ongoing within Orlando South. The Kissimmee River Restoration Project, world's largest, most ambitious river restoration project. Lake Okeechobee, one of the largest lakes going. A lot of work to be done here. The Everglades, unique among anything in the United States. Let's preserve that as well. And just to find, wow, I'm one of the, if you look at it, really handful of people that's working collaboratively to try to make things better. Try to leave a legacy for my children, for my grandchildren. It's a great feeling. You go to work every day pretty charged at what you're doing and thinking you're making a difference.
Cleaning up Lake Macatawa and the Macatawa Watershed is a daunting task, but it has an attainable goal. We're aiming for about a 70% cleanup rate. We realize that the lake cannot be completely cleaned up, but playing off of what we've learned from other communities, other projects that have been done throughout the country, we do know that it is possible to clean up the water, and that we implement the right suite of practices or enough diversified practices, we can actually make a difference in cleaning up the water.
Everybody who is around the lake experiences the lake in some aspect, whether you go to the beach or whether you're You take your walks along the Heinz Pickle Factory. Anywhere in there, you're being affected by the lake. And the beauty of the lake can only be if we are to clean it up.
What should our restoration goal be is a critical one when we talk about ecosystem restoration, because everybody wants Crystal Lake or Lake Tahoe in their backyard. And the reality is a lot of the lakes in this region will never attain that. They never did attain that. Even before European settlers came here, when it was just the Native Americans, they didn't look like that.
There was a reference by the French trappers that were in the area beforehand that they called it Rive Prune, Plum Lake, which also implies a dark color. It was probably always a dark-colored lake with lots of deciduous trees dropping their leaves on the bottom. Those leaves would decay on the bottom of the lake and make this nice organic muck that you can walk through with plants growing there, and it would have made a very dark-colored lake. The water is clear, but it's very dark-colored on the bottom. And that, if you have the sunlight reflecting off it, it would look like a black lake, which is what it was originally named.
It's unrealistic to expect Lake Macatawa to look like Lake Tahoe, because it never did and it never will. But I think we can expect certain ecosystem services to be restored to this lake.
We had a nice science experiment last year with a drought where we saw what happens when the sediment is turned off and not pouring into Lake Macatawa with every rain event.
You know, what we learned last year is that if you reduce the sedimentation, the lake is clearer than we thought possible.
Because it was such a dry year in 2012, there was much less sediment coming off of the watershed. There were no rain events to move the sediment into the lake, and so the lake actually had enough light penetrating through the water column to have these algal blooms form.
Now, to most people, I think they thought this was a tremendous setback to the water quality in Lake Macatawa. But for the people who actually research the lake, they know that the water is clearer than anyone thought possible if you eliminate the sedimentation.
If we can control the sediment, we can get the conditions in the lake appropriate to have a restored water body once we deal with the nutrients. And so we need to deal with both of them. So it shows us a pathway to success, even though that indicator is not necessarily something that we take a lot of pride in.
It'll never look like the Bahamas. It'll never be crystal clear and sunny that you can see this white, yellow sand, but you will have a clear lake again if you follow the certain practices of removing the sediment from entering the lake. And that becomes a very tangible, something I can do in my lifetime.
Even though the greatest percentage of the sedimentation and the phosphorus attached to it comes from rural areas, every person who lives in the Macatawa Watershed can play a role in helping clean up the water. It doesn't matter if you're a student, if you're a business owner, a homeowner, all people can play a role in this. We all have water that leaves our property. We all influence the water system in some way. And if we all step up and do a little bit, do our part, collectively, we can make a major difference in the watershed and the quality of water within our community.
I think we've been in a long couple decades of just assuming that Lake Macatawa has always looked bad. It's always had poor water quality, there's nothing we can do. And we kind of have to get over that hump of thinking there's nothing we can do, because there's a lot of things that we can do.
We now have an opportunity to get at the root cause of a lot of the problems in our watershed and make it better for everybody, better for the citizens of our community, better for the businesses, better for the farmers. We have a chance to fix some things that we didn't know we were hurting.
The lake needs everybody to contribute to its cleanliness. We can all contribute by picking up along the lakeshore edge. We can all contribute by watching what we put back into the stormwater drains. That means that most of us that are landowners have a lawn. Most of us are trying to keep up with our neighbors to keep it green. We have to watch where we put phosphorus down. We have to watch where we fertilize our lawns. We have to watch where the lawn clippings go and where our leaf runoff ends up. If it all ends up back in the lake, then we haven't done our part.
think about ways that you can keep water on your property. So we don't encourage flooding your property, but choose native plants instead of turf grass. Maybe consider putting in a rain garden. So there's areas of your property that have a depressed area, and a lot of people like to just drain those areas right off into the roadside ditch. Keep that water on your property, make it into a beautiful rain garden.
Little things you can do, like not use detergent with phosphorus in it. Make sure you don't buy fertilizer with phosphorus in it.
You wash your car at home, don't wash it in the driveway where all of the oils and greases and soaps and detergents can run off down the nearest storm drain. You wash your car on your grass. That would be a lot healthier for the watershed.
The little things can make big differences, and that bit by bit, really in our lifetimes, we can make Lake Mac infinitely better than what it is right now.
It really is something that we can change. So imagine if we could alter our behavior such that we could permanently affect a change, so that there weren't algae blooms, there weren't turbid waters, and that we had the clear water back that was once here.
What we can do beyond changing our individual behavior so that we don't pollute, we can, probably the most powerful thing we can do is voting on a local basis.
It's really important for local citizens to voice their opinion to the townships, their city governments, their county governments about how important water quality is to them. There's a lot of choices that are being made on a day-to-day basis about where to spend money. So if they're hearing from their local community and not just Hope College or the Macatawa Watershed Project about how important these measures are, it's going to hold a lot more weight with them. So I would encourage the local community just to take part in their local government.
Getting people educated not just on what's going on with the ecology of the system, but what that whole resource provides for the region. Whether it's the ecological benefit, whether it's the economic benefit, whether it's recreating benefit, all of these come into play. And restoration's really at the heart of allowing all of those to prosper. So getting that out into the public and letting them understand it so that they can then support it really helps support each project as they move forward.
We should be, as a community, voting on projects that increase or mitigate wetlands.
It's essential that we have natural habitat for wildlife. We have recreational opportunities along our greenways, and a very, very important benefit of doing those things correctly is improved water quality.
Very few of us are given an opportunity to change something in our lifetime that we can recognize. And this is, I used to think maybe my grandchildren would be able to see a clean lake. And now my mission has changed to say that if we really do this well, we ought to be able to see a cleaner lake in my children's lifetime.
Having a healthy greenway in a community is a real asset, I think, one that is going to impact quality of life for everybody.
This is a public good. This is part of our common good and part of our heritage going forward.
People have to be aware of what the expectations are and the timeline. So there's always a lag time between when you put a best management practice in and when you see the results in downstream water quality.
When you've got abuses that have accumulated over 100 or 150 years, you're not going to solve it overnight.
If it takes 20 or 30 years of a slow degradation of the environment, it's going to take another 20, 30 years of positive rebuilding to get us where we need to go. So when we think about this issue in particular, it is very much a multi-generational issue. Now, we may have a solution that could speed up that process, but it doesn't change the fact that it takes a long-term commitment to maintaining what it is that we're fixing.
I stumbled across some photographs that were taken in the mid-90s, aerial shots. Think about, I think the mid-90s does not sound like that long ago, right? It sounds like a blink of an eye. Freedom Village was under construction. All the development along 7th Street, whether it's a parking ramp, whether it's City Flats Hotel, none of that was there. The Super Black building was still unredeveloped. Hope College's DeVos Fieldhouse wasn't there. It was city transportation buildings and a foundry. This is less than 20 years ago. All of this has really transformed downtown, and all of it has changed. Well, fast forward out 20 years, and it will come in the blink of an eye, And I think that we will see similar kinds of transformational things, especially along the downtown waterfront, in ways that we can't even think of what that looks like right now.
Even if we just walk away from the problem and say it's somebody else's problem, that will continue to haunt this community, and that failure to act will leave it to our children or their generation to try to clean up this lake after ours.
Whenever you're making decisions, when leaders in a community are making decisions about where to put their energy, time, and resources, there's always positives and negatives. There's ramifications for every decision. This investment of resources is going to yield a very broad benefit for a very large number of people for a long time. And when you look for that combination of broad impact for a long period of time, that's usually a home run and a win for resources. And I think we've hit it on this project.
When we have a lake that would be actually attractive to people to come and to fish in, that would have a tremendous commercial attractiveness to being in the area. The tourism dollar to come to Lake Macatawa area would be enhanced tremendously by having those fish populations back. If we look at the old fishing stories from 100 to 120 years ago, you'll see tales of 4 gentlemen from Chicago that came for an afternoon, and apparently the newspapers had nothing better to do than report on their fishing prowess. They would go out with lines and they'd come back with 4 bushels of fish at the end of a 4-hour fishing session. And I think that was part of the tourist attraction of the lake back in the last century, the century before even. And it will continue to be an attraction for this area to have good fishing communities in the lake. It's not critical to our commercial success anymore, but it is critical